Since 1931, 5 families have run New York's Italian-American mafia.
In the world of organized crime, the tradition is that murders do not go unavenged. Albert Anastasia, murdered while he was having a haircut on West 59th Street.
Was he shot because he threatened to talk about what he knew?
Last night he was walking in Little Italy when 2 gunmen started shooting and left him dying.
Joseph Colombo, shot in Columbus Circle.
He was known as the canary who couldn't fly.
The couple were murdered in their car.
Joey Gallo, killed during dinner at Umberto's Clam House.
As police search for witnesses.
Carmine Galante, boss of the Bonanno family, killed at a restaurant in Brooklyn.
Could another mob war be brewing?
Paul Castellano, murdered outside a restaurant on East 46th Street.
The head of Manhattan Homicide had no doubts about the nature of the crime.
Their own kind of law, public murder. Does law enforcement bring these organized crime kingpins to justice, or is it organized crime taking care of its own in their own way?
But by and large, the system brings them to justice before there is retaliation.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of In Search Of. Today we're going to be talking to Jimmy Ferrari, who is not only a member of Delta Bravo, but somebody who's a bit of an expert in locating, finding, and going to some of the more famous mob hit sites.
I'm glad to be here. I don't know about expert.
You've collected more of these locations than most people even know about.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But it's also a matter of convenience for me. I can take a 10-minute walk to a certain area, and the 4 corners on 86th Street and like 14th Avenue, the whole area over there, major stuff has happened, from car bombings to funerals to the Gambinos all hanging out constantly in a certain restaurant. Like there's one corner, it's like you just look around and major stuff has happened from people that are almost household names.
The ability of the mob to kill people in cold blood and get away with it gives them the ability to terrorize other people.
They terrorize by killing their own in public. Deadly messages from organized crime to organized crime and the rest of society.
Mob boss Carmine Galante was gunned down back in 1979. Since then, the men who ordered his gangland execution have gone unnamed.
I think this one is one of my favorites that you've done of the mob hits, simply because of the story leading up to getting into the building and getting this angle. The original photograph is really, it seems really interesting to me that they would have gone up there to the roof to take this angle themselves.
There was Carmine Galante, known as the Cigar, laying sprawled in the backyard of Joe and Mary's restaurant in the Bushwick section of Brooklyn. The cigar clenched in his teeth, an eye shot out, a grotesque idol to those who worship the violence, power, and corruption of organized crime.
The whole story is Carmine Galante, he's sitting there having like a little meeting to what used to be Joe and Mary's Italian restaurant. And guys rushed in and opened fire on him. And the guys that were there basically as his bodyguards stood there and did absolutely nothing. That's at 205 Knickerbocker Avenue in Brooklyn. So I found out where that was. There's apartments on top of a whole bunch of storefronts. And that spot, what used to be Joe and Mary's Italian restaurant, is shuttered down. And somebody had told me, I think it was somebody on the street that day, that the inside where Joe and Mary's used to be is just like storage for whatever reason. But there's it's just a roll down gate. So there's no way to get in there to get into the backyard. So I had to think outside the box, and there was like a dry cleaner and another store. And I went in there and I was like, listen, I need to get into the backyard. Is there any way? And everyone was like, no, there's no way, because on the opposite side of this picture, I guess above where you see Carmine Galante, there's another building there. So it's buildings are butted up all against each other. And all of these are like, they don't join together, all these backyards. Like the only way you're getting in there is through the actual building. So there was no way for me to do it. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to have to somehow get onto the roof. So I'm waiting there patiently. for hopefully somebody to either go in or come out of one of the doors in the vicinity, like within a couple of storefronts. And I'm waiting like 5 minutes. I'm talking with these two women, and somebody walks out, and as they walking out, one of the women actually like held the door for me open so it doesn't close and lock, because you would have to get buzzed in. Then I saw there's an access ladder, and there's like kids' bicycles like chained up to this thing. So I'm like, well, I'm already in. There's no way I'm turning back, you know? So I climb up the access ladder, I lift it, I throw the hatch off, and now I'm like, okay, I'm on the roof. But that's where one of the most infamous mob hits ever, it took place. Anthony, they used to call him Little Augie Paisano. Carfano was a capo in the Lucano crime family under Lucky Luciano and Frank Costello back in the day. This right here, this photograph that I matched was taken on September 25th, 1959. At Marino's restaurant, he bumped into mutual friends. Amongst those friends was a former Miss New Jersey and wife of comedian. There was a comedian back in the day his name was Alan Drake. This was his wife. Carfano offered to drive Janice home after dinner to her apartment in Rego Park in Queens. In the middle of the meal, Carfano allegedly received a phone call. After hanging up, he told his group that he and Drake had to leave and had been called away on urgent business. They left the restaurant and drove away in his Cadillac. Police later theorized that this phone call was from Frank Costello warning Carfano about being hit. About a half a mile from the airport, the Cadillac approached the cross street at 25th Avenue, and it slowed down for some reason. There was then a bunch of gunfire into the car, and it drifted off into the street and onto the sidewalk at this address at 2450 94th Street in Queens. They were both shot in the head and killed. Crazy. So this woman was just a comedian's wife who was getting a ride home from a guy who had a hit on his head, and they were approached, and they were both killed. And the building is exactly the same. You could see like the diamond-shaped bricks.
Oh, yeah.
It's exactly, when I pulled up in front of it, I was like, wow. Right, the next one, right there. This is crazy. These two, Tommy and Rosemary Uva, talk about world's dumbest criminals. Tommy and Rosemary were boyfriend and girlfriend. Tommy is a junkie, goes to jail, gets out of jail. Now they need to start making money. Why they chose to start robbing mafia social clubs, I have no idea why. It's almost too ridiculous to be real. You have to have a death wish. He staked out a whole bunch of places and was like, listen, they're not expecting to be robbed. So what better place, I guess, in their mind, but let's start robbing social clubs because there's got to be money there. Now, it didn't last very long, obviously, but it was Christmas Eve and they were going out somewhere. And next thing you know, when they stopped at a light on Woodhaven Boulevard and 103rd Avenue and shot them both, and they drifted and crashed into, it was an older wall, obviously, of where they crashed. And that's the two geniuses dead on Christmas Eve because they decided to rob Gambino-operated social clubs. Roy DeMeo. Roy DeMeo, I'm going to say that he was more of a serial killer pretending to be a mobster.
But by the time he was 25, he was a full-fledged mafia mobster, a part of a killing crew known as the Murder Machine.
This guy was a butcher. Literally. He operated the Gemini Lounge, which is in Canarsie on Troy Avenue in Flatlands. But the door right behind it was an apartment that was behind the Gemini Lounge. The Gemini Lounge entrance would be behind him on the corner.
This is the horror hotel. This was the place where the DeMeo crew chopped up the bodies of their murder victims and packaged them and shipped them off to the dump. They disposed of a couple of dozen bodies here.
The horror hotel?
Horror hotel, right.
That doorway led into an apartment And that's where people have heard of the Gemini method. It was very choreographed. They would be waiting for somebody to come in, and as soon as they walked in, he would get shot in the head. Then another person would wrap a bag around his head to stop all the blood from going all over. And then another guy would run out and he would stab him in the heart so that the blood would stop pumping. And then they would bring him into the bathroom and they would hang him upside down into the bathtub, over the bathtub, and basically drain him of all of his blood into the tub. They approximate about 200 people died in there.
It's just like living anywhere else. It just bothered me the first night when I read about it in the paper.
What bothered you?
All the blood that went down the drain from the bodies. You know, I kind of felt eerie when I took a shower. But otherwise than that, it really didn't bother me because I feel when people are dead, you're dead.
The building is still exactly the same, and you could see how, you know, the contrast is different, but you see the darker, weird, spaced out bricks in the original photo, and you could see on the building, they're all the same. There's nothing, how this place has not been torn down is beyond me. And now it's a church.
You know anything about a gang war? Are you trying to protect yourself?
Wait, what kind of gang war? There's no gangs, there's no wars, there's nothing.
Oh, no.
The Crazy Joe Gallo hit, you and I were together when we were at Umberto's Clam House, which isn't called that anymore, down in, there it is.
At about 5:30 this morning, the best that we can determine at the moment, an unidentified male walked in the side door, fired some shots, and then ran from the premises. Joe Gallo is dead, DOA, at Beekman Downtown Hospital.
We went in and even it was busy, and it's in Little Italy, and we asked if we could see the bullet holes in the wall.
Yeah, I know. They kind of didn't know what the hell we were talking about. See, that's crazy. Like, if I worked there, that would be the first thing I would want to know. I would be on there. I don't care. I'll come in early. I'm finding the bullet holes.
A man walked in from the back door, and he walked up the side of the table. We fired 3 shots. We hit Joe twice, and he hit his bodyguard, Pete the Greek, 1 time.
Yeah. This is the Gallo Cruz safe and stash house. This is in Red Hook. It's 51 President Street between Van Brunt and Columbia Streets in Red Hook, Brooklyn. But he would declare to his whole crew that we're going to the mattresses. And that means we're going on the lam and we're going to go here. And it was their safe house. It was also Crazy Joe Gallo's grandmother's house. But the buildings were like demolished and rebuilt. But yeah, I mean, that's the exact plot of where that used to be and where that mafia history took place.
Big Paul Castellano. According to lawmen, he's boss of the 800 gangsters who are said to make up the Gambino crime family. Castellano and the 4 other men fingered by the feds as godfathers of New York's 5 crime families, all indicted today.
Paulo Gambino, on his deathbed, basically passed up Neil De La Croce as boss of the Gambino family, and it was given to Paul Castellano. John Gotti and all the street guys were pissed off. Basically, Gotti was like, listen, you know, I wouldn't mind seeing, you know, Castellano go. And De La Croce was like, you don't whack a boss. You do not do that. There are rules to this thing. You break the rules, the whole thing cracks and crumbles, period. He's the boss, you deal with it. There's nothing you can do.
6 shell casings were on the pavement of East 46th Street, right next to the body of Paul Castellano Sr., the top mafiosi in the United States, the heir to the Gambino family, indeed, the son-in-law of the late Carlo Gambino.
The bullets that ended Big Paul Castellano's life last night may very well have been a payoff for getting into such trouble with the feds. As the reputed head of the crime commission and the godfather of the Gambino family, his appearance in court every day and the preoccupation with his defense were bad for business. Experts say his associates may very well have decided Big Paul was more trouble than he was worth.
Is that body in the middle, is that Tommy Bilotti or is that Paul Castellano?
Yeah. No, that's Tommy Bilotti. Paul Castellano
was on the sidewalk, right?
Yes, in between the open door, the car, and the sidewalk, laying halfway in the street. Right there.
And that picture there, I've been to that spot myself.
It's identical.
Well, not only is it identical, it's right there in the middle of town, right? And it's not in some residential neighborhood in Brooklyn. It's not near one of the social clubs. It's a steakhouse near, pretty close to Times Square, isn't it?
It's on 46th Street in the city, and it's super busy. And what's crazy is they did it like during rush hour, during like Christmas time. That's just like, if you think about that, the balls that it takes to do that, it's something straight out of a movie.
There were witnesses, but not many. They told police of an apparently well-trained and heavily armed hit squad.
The only thing we can ascertain at this time is that it was 3 males wearing trench coats who left towards 2nd Avenue.
The shooters were John Carniglia, Angelo Ruggiero, also known as Quack Quack, Dominic Pitonia, and Tony Rampino, all Gambino soldiers.
We put it together so well together. I actually planned the hit. It was in Midtown Manhattan in front of Sparks Steakhouse. It was 5:30 at night, right before Christmas. Mobs of people in the street, cops everywhere. He never saw that coming. And that's what I looked for.
It's New York history, it's mafia history, it's true crime history, and it's something that the majority of people are aware of. If you bring it up, they'll be like, oh yeah, I remember that, or what, you know what I mean? It's just something that's woven into everybody at this point.
But there is definitely a reason that in the zeitgeist, that people love mob stories and mob movies.
The history in New York with the mafia it's like second to none. There's a fascination with the mob. It's a part of our culture at this point.
John Gotti, a man with the label mob boss, lives with his wife and children in this house in a middle-class neighborhood in Howard Beach, Queens. Private security patrols routinely canvass the quiet streets.
John Gotti in front of his house, 16011 85th Street in Howard Beach, like 2 houses, 1 house off the corner of 160th Avenue.
John Gotti, the flashy Gambino crime boss who took over after the sensational 1985 gangland shooting of Paul Castellano outside Sparks Steakhouse.
John Gotti is almost like not even a real person. You know what I mean? He's like a legend.
This is where Gotti hangs out. The Bergen Hunt and Fish Club on 101st Street in Ozone Park. Law enforcement officials say it's Gotti's headquarters, a place for meetings, deals. The FBI bugged it, so it's quiet here now.
The jailhouse gates rumble down as a prison van carries John Gotti to a future behind bars.
This was taken right after John, I believe, he beat the government. I think this was the 2nd time, and this is when he got the nickname the Teflon Don.
In fact, John Gotti and his alleged criminal associates spend most of their spare time right here at the Ravenite Social Club.
The news was like, now the Dapper Don is now the Teflon Don because everything slides off of him and nothing sticks. They were walking out of the Ravenite, and the whole street was mobbed, crazy people, and celebrating this folk hero of just beat the government again. And next thing you know, there's fireworks, and he's looking up at the fireworks. There's a lot of photos out there of this actual incident.
The New York Post reports Sammy the Bull Gravano, who stunned the underworld by cooperating with the feds, will link Gotti's crew to 15 to 20 mob rubouts.
Tonight, John Gotti stands convicted, found guilty on every count against him. And the top dog in the country's most powerful crime family can only look at the moon through jailhouse bars.
I really admire your level of research and level of dedication of trying to get the right story and the right place and the right location.
If anything, I just get more and more and more involved, and I just wish that there was more days in the week and hours in the day to do this stuff. And I just need to hit the lotto, and then I'll just be Delta Bravoing things all around the planet.